Hi, everybody. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you before we jump into this week's episode. I just have some really cool announcements. First, I will be in Nashville the weekend of June 3rd, and I am taking the Modern Working Musician with me. So if you're interested in doing an interview, please reach out to me. You can either find me at keeganpeluso.com or my email, which is keeganpelusomusic@gmail.com. Along those lines, I am selling merchandise to help supplement the cost of this trip. We have some stickers, t-shirts, hoodies, all with the Modern Working Musician logo on them. And you can find pictures of those and all that good stuff at keeganpeluso.com. And if you want more information, visit me at my website. I'm not doing a Kickstarter or anything like that. It's just going to be through Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. So if you want more information on that, reach out to me, either email, Facebook, Instagram, website, all that good stuff. I will also be offering some extremely reasonably priced ad time to any band or artist or small business who wants to promote their endeavors. If you're releasing an album, you're playing a show, something like that, I'd be more than happy to give you some ad space at the beginning of each episode. So same thing, reach out to me and we'll work it out. Now, I have two really cool announcements moving forward with the podcast itself and how it's going to be run. First is in the area of censorship. When I was a teacher, I always felt like there was material that I really wanted to show my students that I was unable to because of what was and was not deemed school appropriate. And when I did the podcast, I did the same thing. I would bring a guest on and be like, hey, I'm a teacher. We need to keep, blah, blah, blah. And I found that I would be in the middle of a conversation with an incredibly intelligent guest, and they would be going to make a point, and then their point was largely inhibited because they were trying to censor their language in their head before they moved forward. And I don't want to do that anymore. That doesn't mean this podcast is just going to dive into impropriety and just have horrible conversations all the time and stuff like that. But I don't want to inhibit the educational value based on some arbitrary standard. So it's going to be a little less censored. That being said, there will be a disclaimer at the beginning for episodes with more diverse language. But I don't want to inhibit the educational value of this podcast anymore based on some level of censorship that I don't necessarily need to uphold. I think the philosophical mantra of this podcast should be education above all else, and that is going to be the narrative that we push moving forward, is that the educational value is the main factor, the primary goal above all else. Along those same lines, I've had a number of people reach out to me about what I'm looking for in a podcast guest. And it's going to be along those same lines of education above all else. So I want to keep this podcast educational more than promotional, if that makes sense. And there's obviously going to be some inevitable overlap, and I love promoting whoever my guest is on the show at the time. But this podcast needs to be about what educational value we can bring to the listener. So if you're interested in doing a podcast episode, the main question you need to ask yourself is, what educational topic or what educational value can I bring to this podcast? This doesn't need to turn into the I'm releasing an album or playing a show podcast. I think those are great, and I and would love to offer a space for that, but the educational value needs to be the primary factor. So that being said, if you're not sure or you are still interested and just have some questions, please reach out to me. I would love to help you if you think you may know what you want to speak on, but are having trouble just finding some clarity on it. I would love to have any and everybody on the show, as long as we keep it educational first. So in summation, I'm going to Nashville to do some cool things, bring the podcast with me, buy some merch, buy some ad time, and that would greatly support my endeavors to bring more educational content to you all. We're going to be a little less censored than we were before, and the educational value, education above all else, is the mantra of the show. So, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to me, and that is the end of my announcements. We will get rolling with the episode. Warning, this episode may contain language that is not suitable for younger listeners. Parental discretion is advised. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Modern Working Musician. Sorry for the late post this week. My kid was having trouble napping, and I can basically only edit when she's asleep, so that's why we're running a little late. Anyway, my guest this week is Mr. Josh Stevens. Josh is a Memphis staple. He hails from Ripley, Tennessee, and has done basically everything you could possibly do in the music industry, from being a tech, going on tour, running sound, running lights. He was a luthier for a guitar company for a long time, among many other things. You can currently find him on tour, playing guitar in a punk band called Escapado. You can find their music everywhere, and they're doing a 67-day run around most of the United States, which is super rad. He also plays in a band around Memphis called Glorious Abhor. You can find them everywhere at Glorious Abhor. And they should be releasing a new album sometime this late summer to fall, when Josh gets back from tour. Josh is just a gem of a human. This podcast is the longest podcast we've ever done because I kept forgetting we were recording, and we were just having a ball talking to each other on my back porch. So you can find Josh everywhere at Josh Stevens, and all of his handles are in the show notes as well. So without further ado, here's my very good friend, Mr. Josh Stevens. And we're rolling. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Modern Working Musician, where we are on a quest to learn that there is not a single set career path in music. This week is my good friend Josh Stevens. Josh has been, he said as he adjusted the mic while he's talking like it's like an amateur, but Josh has been a Memphis staple for quite a while. You've done, your career spans, I would dare say, nearly every aspect of the music industry at this point. And he's just an all-around gem of a human being. So welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks.
I'm very happy to have you here on my back porch, which is our first outdoor episode. I kind of want to go back to the beginning, man. Like, how did you get your start in music, man?
Interesting story. I've been banging on pots and pans since I was 6, but I didn't, I started out on drums. I was born in 81. We'll just start there. It was a cold, dark Chicago night. No, we were really poor growing up, and I always had some kind of microphone or, comb, brush or whatever, singing into it. My grandmother used to love to sing, Lawrence Welk and Hee Haw.
Oh yeah.
Growing up. And I hated Hee Haw, but the older I get, I kind of appreciate Lawrence Welk a little bit.
Coming back to it, man.
Yeah. Which, I mean, in fast forwarding, I banged on pots and pans, and it wasn't until I moved down to, I'd been writing songs and stuff, not knowing what I was doing, just writing words and shit and making melodies in my head. And man, I really wish I still had those books, because it was real corny. But it was a really good development for me in terms of songwriting, because I got all the rhyming, like love and above and all that stuff. I got that out very young. And it wasn't until I was like 13, 14, 15, something like that, I moved to this house out in the sticks in Ripley. And there was a guy named Randy who pulled out his drum kit, like 16-piece, Yamaha or Pearl, like Tommy Aldridge set. It was huge, double bass. He was an '80s guy. He was really big into the Tommy Aldridge. The drummer for I think he played with like Ozzy and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So this dude pulls his drum kit out in like the middle of summer, posts up outside of his nice house, starts playing his drums, and I'm outside playing with my dog, and I hear it, and it was just like the Pied Piper. Like I just walked down the street, about half a mile, and I just sat there and watched him, and he was just like, "Hey, man," he was very, very, very boisterous, Southern man. And he had a mullet too, like to paint you the picture, like the high top sneakers, like short shorts, and a mullet, and he was just like, "You play drums?" I was like, I mean, I like drums. He's like, well, shit, man, get back here and go and play some. Beat him up. You ain't gonna hurt him.
Oh, that's
and he did, and he let me get behind his kit, and it was way huge, and I just kind of dropped a simple beat like off the bat, and he's like, you're pretty good. He's like, here, man, my kid's 6. I got him a kit, but he doesn't want to play. Have it.
Oh my gosh.
And so he gave me like an old Percussion Plus drum kit. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the best condition, but I took it home and I beat the shit out of those things.
Yeah.
Drove my mom bonkers. And then I met my friend Brad, who was a bass player, and him and his brother was a guitar player. Met them at high school, as you do, and he was just like, hey, we're going to start a band now. I was like, okay. And then he one day decided that drum kit wasn't good enough for me, and he drove me to Memphis and bought me my first kit. It was a Mapex Venus series.
Oh my goodness.
Like 4-piece kit, $1,200. And he just dropped the money on it. Never asked me. I mean, dude, I played music with this guy for years, and it sucks because we don't talk anymore. But like I've been a musician since my teenage years, and I've never once like owned my own drum kit, and I've had 5 or 6 of them now.
Wow.
I've always owned them, but it was always been like a weird roundabout.
Yeah.
I did some session work for this punk band in Jackson, and I like reheaded an old like 60s Slingerland kit, and like the wrap was kind of warped. It wasn't one of the best Slingerland kits. It's not like one of the most sought after. It was black wrap, but I spent $150 on reheading it and brought my cymbals, and we recorded this album. And the guy was like, "Here, that's your drum kit now."
Wow. And
that's just how it goes. And of course, Taylor, when Taylor and I were living, when he moved here, Taylor Moore, my old drummer, and he needed a vehicle, and I had a Cherokee Chief 4x4, like an '84 model, and so I traded him that vehicle for the kit that I have now.
Wow.
So it's like Auto Trader all day for me in drums, man.
That's crazy, dude. That's just, I love. We talk a lot about on the show about like finding your musical identity, and like how that's a sport. Like that's one thing I loved about teaching public school is like younger kids are always looking. Dude, like being a middle schooler, especially, like totally sucks. Like I feel awful for middle schoolers, and like for a kid to find music and be like, "This is my thing." Like there's like that comfort zone. So for you to find like that like musical identity, and for that guy to just be so nice, be like, "Oh yeah, like have at it, man." Like to have that positive like initial musical experience is so freaking cool, man.
Yeah, it's one thing to brag about, never having to spend bukus of dollars on things. That doesn't always inevitably make me feel the greatest, but the conditioning of just like heartfelt generosity from people, where like I feel personally humbled and grateful that people see something in me and that they're willing to help me out in such ways like that like I'm just forever grateful.
Yeah, totally, man.
Of the opportunities and the chances that I've gotten and received, and I try not to squander them as much as possible. I
think you do a good job, man. I really do.
I appreciate it.
I think that's great. Like, talking about just people recognizing your abilities and your gifts and wanting to like contribute to that, man. I think that's really good. And I don't know if have you seen Dave Grohl's Hot Ones interview yet?
I haven't.
Oh yeah. Well, this is like the 3rd time I've mentioned this in a podcast episode, but he talks about just like be good at your craft, and like people are going to notice, and I think people have obviously taken notice, in what you're doing. All right, so we got to talk about marching band.
Okay.
You were in marching band at Ripley High School and Halls High School, is that right?
So I wasn't at Ripley.
Okay.
By proxy, I was marching band adjacent at
Gotcha.
Ripley. I dated a girl who she played clarinet there. She's still one of my best friends, and I did hang out in the band room the whole time. Went on a band trip.
Okay.
Because my friend Brad, he also played tuba there, and then she played clarinet, and then his sister couldn't go, so I went as a chaperone.
Oh, wow.
And that was what was interesting about that story is how it connects me to Halls. Like, you know, if you this small area, like Ripley and Halls are right next to one another.
Right.
I went to Ripley, and we went on the band trip down to Florida, to Disney World, Disneyland, whichever one's down there.
Yeah.
And we did that, and I went as a chaperone. And then I ended up playing, you know, they're like, well, you can't technically be a chaperone, so you're going to play cymbals. And so I did. And, you know, we just went to party. You know, we drank a bunch of booze, underage and stuff, like just kids being kids.
Right.
And then we woke up the next day so hungover, and I'm just like clanging cymbals. And I'm just like, oh, God, we're like marching through the heat, you know, in the middle of the summer. It was a good time. But what it was is that it was a group thing between Ripley High and Halls High. And so the people that Brad and I ended up meeting, who like we all were in a band for years to come, my old band Manova and Anodyne, we met them, the drummer at the Halls marching band. He was a snare drummer.
Oh, wow.
For Halls. And so then after that at the end of that year, I transferred to Halls because we had moved out further, like in between. And so then I got closer with the guys in Halls, and then Brad and I would just go with them. And there was a 5-piece band. So we met 2 guitar players, Rob Rogers and John Woodard, and then Brad Butner, and then Jacob Newman, and then myself. And the first show we ever played, I think we were 16. I was 16, and I was the singer because Jacob was the drummer, and we played the YMCA in Dyersburg.
Oh, wow.
And we booked that show. I don't remember how they did it, but we did. We booked it, and we just like were running around the Dyersburg Mall, like handing out flyers and stuff because we thought that's what we were doing. We had a pretty good turnout, and we played like 2 hours long, and just a bunch of covers like Lit and Korn and, you know, Foo Fighters, Nirvana, like Godsmack, just you know, the sign of the times of the 90s. And
all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. I wore a Kung Fu gi, so there's that. I'll put that out in the world. That Kung Fu gi I bought at Disney World. So,
dude, that's absolutely.
It's crazy times, man.
Yeah. So like you're transferring and being friends with those guys kind of led to like doing the marching band thing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So when I moved to Halls, you know, my friend Brent Wooster that I was telling you about, you know, him and Jacob both were on the snare, and then they needed a quads player.
Okay.
So I got on quad. I think Rob played bass.
Okay.
And yeah, that's what we did. And then, like I said, we went first place drumline, and then did all state that year. And then I graduated the next year.
That's crazy, man.
I tried to do like I said earlier. What I was saying is that I made it through. I played 4th and 5th grade. I did alto, and then I did alto sax, and then I did clarinet.
Yeah.
And I made it all the way through concert and winter band, and I never learned how to read sheet music. I just did it all by ear. I didn't know that back then, but I was just mirroring what everybody else was. That was the first real instrument that I'd ever picked up, was like clarinet and saxophone.
Okay.
And but like I still wish I had those. You know, I wish I would get my chops back up, because I think they'd probably be really good now.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, I digress. But you know, I basically went through middle school, and then I did some keyboard classes through junior high, and then high school I did marching band, and then when it came, I did Latin band through Ripley.
Okay.
And then I did jazz band. Like, we did a whole Latin thing out in Millington.
That's cool. That's
it was really
cool.
cool.
I did a Latin band.
Yeah, we did like Glorious Abhor and stuff like that. You know, just kind of like very, very straightforward. You know, turn the beat around and whatnot. Yeah. And I just kind of just made my way through it. You know, not learning the music.
Well, like having an ear for those kind of styles too, though. That's one thing we tend to talk a lot about in one of the bands. We're doing like a cover band thing right now, is like knowing the difference between like a cha-cha and a salsa and stuff like that. And like just having an ear for that, because that style is so, like, Latin music is so prevalent in pop now. When a lot of people don't realize, like, the amount of samba that you hear on the radio without realizing it is like bonkers.
Especially nowadays in popular music. And I do, I'm a big fan of, I don't know if I'm ever saying it right, but like choro. I can't roll my R's. Choro, foro music.
I can't roll my R's either, so it's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always been. I started playing guitar around like 16, 17 as well. Just when those guys like wouldn't come over as much as I wanted them to or whatever, and so I just like they would leave their gear at my house, and that's how I started playing guitar. I think I bought my first guitar at like 18.
Okay.
Like shitty Silvertone at On Cue in Covington, and
I forgot about On Cue.
Yeah, I'm here to let you know.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, but like the older I get, like I just cut my nails. I was trying to grow them out to play like more flamenco or nylon string, like, and I want to do that so bad, but I don't like the nails.
yeah, I can't. I can't do it either, man. I think my brother did it for a little while, but I can't do it. How would you say, if at all, if not at all, it's totally fine. How would you say, coming from a very like a contemporary music background, like did marching band or did like being in music programs at school, did that influence your music making at all with your bands or anything like that?
I don't believe that I realized the influence it had on me at the time. I've been a very oblivious person through most of my life, just because like when you're young and you're just like wild and free and you're just like you're trying to soak up as much as you can. I think I was just I was misrepresenting the influence at the time. Like I definitely thought, just being a shithead kid, that like marching band and all that stuff was beneath me to some degree.
Yeah.
But what's ironic now is, you know, with me doing the Last Waltz and stuff like that, and the first year we did it with no horns, and then it was like Jason and I got to talking about it, which I know we'll get into this later, but
yeah,
when we started incorporating horns, that's when I was like, now I want this in my band. Now I want a horn section all the time. You know what I mean? Because it goes back like the whole processions and stuff like that, like in New Orleans. When I used to work down there, like I used to love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm you know, it's not, I'm not passionate in the fact that like I just want to go and be a horn player, but like whenever I see a band that has like a juke joint horn section or something now, like, man, I just get so fired up.
Dude, same.
And I didn't appreciate everything that was happening in marching band, mostly because it wasn't the music that I was picking, or I didn't have enough control over it. I was just like very short man complex. Like I was a very tiny kid, and I always had a lot to prove back then. So I was just always trying to show out and show up. Gotcha. And doing that on drums. That's why I didn't do winter concert band, because they put me behind a drum kit. And that was where it really was telltale that I didn't know how to read the music. So by me trying to improvise over essentially what I was trying to do on a drum kit in in high school band, what TSO does now, you know, like Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah.
And they're just like, no, this doesn't fit here.
Right.
So I ended my tenure there around that time.
Gotcha.
But you know, that's cool. It is what it is. It was still a learning experience, because
totally, man.
I learned that, like what we were talking about, you know, sometimes you don't always make the cut, and I didn't make the cut because I wasn't ready. I wasn't seasoned enough, even as a teenager, you know? So that was an experience for me. I did walk away from that learning that, okay, well, maybe I do need to study, and maybe I do need to get myself together.
Yeah,
and so I have carried that with me, and I apply myself more now and study up on things, you know, even if it's just, you know, some band, rock and roll band or whatever.
Yeah. Like you and I were nerding out on that, like right before I hit record. It's just like, you were talking a lot about like history of music and stuff like that. And then we were singing Adam Neely's praises, because that dude is ridiculously good.
The GOAT.
Yeah. At what point did you realize that you were going to have a career in music?
I always wanted it. And I think that I didn't always know how to go after it. You know, when you're young and you are frivolous with your approach and your attempts, because you don't know anything about how that world works. We thought that, you know, we would go drive to Jackson and play the VFW for free beer, and eventually one day we'd get signed.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people's mentalities are. And here we are, it's 2022. And, you know, those old ways are so far out the door that those rules don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
Now you have social media, you have TikTok, you have YouTube channels and stuff like that. There's other ways to gain notoriety and attention in order to, garner attention and fame, quote unquote. So I've definitely changed my trajectory, but I started learning the ins and out of the business. I started really wanting to do this professionally. I always have, but I started taking it really serious about 7-8 years ago.
Okay, very cool.
Because when I moved back to Memphis after living out in Oregon and working at Breedlove, there was an incident where they had made one of the Bedell Masterclass guitars, and they made it to look like the British flag or whatever. They were trying to make a a signature guitar for Paul McCartney, and they were just going to go to the concert that he was playing there in town, and they were just going to give it to him, and hope that he would pick up an endorsement with them.
Yeah.
Not that far off, but it was kind of a one shot, and it didn't work, obviously. Yeah. But I remember thinking to myself, it's like, man, that's not the way to do things, but some people do. And so that's where it really started to click in my head. It's like, man, if I'm going to do something, I gotta be where it's happening. And, when I moved to Memphis 20 years ago, I wanted to be in the heart of a big city where everything was happening. I learned very slowly that this wasn't where everything was happening.
Yeah.
But then when I left and came back, I decided, well, fuck it. I'm going to start making shit happen.
Yeah. I think that's one thing me and my brother talk about, is I guess the I don't necessarily want to say the good and the bad, but it kind of is about a city like Memphis is there's a level of potential. Memphis, is a city where guys like you, there are so many people I meet that are hungry to build something as far as the musical community in that town goes, because it's no secret that there was once a huge legacy. There is a huge legacy of music in that city, and some of that is still hanging around. But there's also so much potential there to build something completely new.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, to elaborate on what you're saying, there's no shortage of tremendous talent.
Yeah.
In this city and surrounding. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I've noticed coming from smaller towns around here is that you got people that are just never going to get an opportunity because they're too far away or whatever.
Right.
Or they're not going to be handed or given the opportunities as you might in a bigger city. The juxtaposition, though, is that in Memphis, there's so many people fighting for the same scraps that you're trying to go for. And that can be discouraging. It could provide a deterrent to you and your aspirations, make you want to give up, make you want to call it quits. I've always been, broken by doing what is expected versus doing what drives me.
Yeah.
And I think the end result, though, or the epiphany is that I always end up coming back to this, and I always kick myself in the ass for trying to go the other route, and because it's not something that you can just put down.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can walk. Not me, not you.
Right.
I know there's people that I've met along the way who have just, had kids and got married, and I had to put all that behind me. This is you chose to. Right. And you know as well as I do, we're both dads now. And,
right.
And that I want something inevitably for all the sacrifice to pay off. And I won't quit until I get where I feel I'm happy. Yeah. And I don't think I'm ever going to be content.
Totally, man.
What I would be content is if I was working a career where I'm going to retire and that's just all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
There's a big ass fucking world out there and I want to see it.
Totally, man. I'm going to divulge, this is not a conversation that I've really disclosed publicly before, but when I left teaching and when Ophelia was born in September.
Great name, by the way.
Thank you so much. But we decided I was going to leave teaching, and I fully intended to go back to a desk job. I was going to sell insurance or do web dev or something like that. And the longer Lan and I stayed away from teaching and the more and more Lan and I talked about it, I was like, look, dude, like the best, like I could start from scratch on a new thing, but I have all of these skills that I've already built. Like the only way to put my best foot forward right now is to work on this music thing. Like this is what I've got, and this is what I'm good at. And it's like you said, man. Like I had that sense of clarity of like, it's now's the time to make a career out of this field in whatever capacity, you know. But yeah, no, I totally agree with what you mean. And I was thinking back, you were talking about, you know, like playing the VFW and stuff like that. My I would say like I did the converse of that, or the inverse of that, excuse me, where it was like I wanted music as a career, but everything from my like middle class upbringing told me that I was like, you need to go to college, because if you try to do the music thing, you're gonna be like homeless, you know, or something like that. So yeah, I did, you know, like
very,
I went,
possible
yeah, and I went and got like
scenario.
I went and got a music ed degree and like taught music for 8 years. And like I there were certain aspects I love, but I know friends, I have plenty of friends who, you know, that they were born to be like public school music educators. Like one of my dear friends, he's a band director, and like you know it when you look at him, like he's doing his thing. And I was never one of those people, but I always just, like I said, I did the inverse of like gigging or not having a plan or anything like that, where I just like, I went and found a safety net. And I stuck with my safety net for a decade, you know?
Yeah.
So no, I totally what you mean, man. Like I said, I think I just kind of did, making sure we're still recording. I kind of did the inverse of that. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that we know or that we've crossed paths with, where just, you know, you can judge a book by its cover, or judge somebody based on their character or their candor or their demeanor, or just the type of attitude they have, and you can kind of see where they're going to wind up or whatever. And then some people will surprise you. And those are the people I honestly adore, you know? And I've always felt like I'm not going to be a very modest person throughout this podcast. I'll just tell you that, because it's not a good look on anyone. I'm not a modest person.
Dude, do you, man? Do you?
Yeah. I tend to use every scenario, every situation as an opportunity to get ahead. And not in like a seedy back alleyway.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, I will burn your fucking ears off telling you about the things that I'm doing or the things that I'm about to do, because I feel like any opportunity you have to say something, you know, say it and make it matter.
Right.
And that's, you know, it's like I tell people all the time when they're just like, oh, you know, it's like, I'm okay, musician, or it's like, yeah, you know, I'm doing kind of cool. It's like, stop that. Stop selling yourself so short.
Right.
Because that energy that you're putting out, that's how people are going to receive you. And I'm not telling other people how to live, but it's just like, I definitely kind of nudge some of my friends who are just like virtuosos, or, you know, who are a skill way above me, even like 10 tiers above. And it's just like, and they're stuck in these small towns doing these gigs and stuff because they're not pushing themselves further. Maybe they don't know how to do it, or maybe they don't know how to get out there. And that's where I think, you know, people such as ourselves, you know, to get together to, you know, be a collective of or a community where it's like, you know, we build one another up. I think that's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and others.
Totally, man.
Is, you know, elevation, you know, congratulations, elevation, whatever.
Yeah. I love how you talk about a lack of modesty too, because I struggle with that often too. But yeah, like one realization that I've come to this past couple of weeks, like if this is what you want to be your career, like if this is the career you want, then it's a job. You've got to find a way to make money at it. And you can't, if you're in sales, if you're a half-ass salesman, like you're not going to make any money. And so the same thing, like this is your job. You need to sell yourself and your brand.
I mean, if you tell people you're an okay salesman, do you think they're going to go with you, or they're going to go with the guy who said, I'm the best fucking salesman you've ever met?
Yeah,
You know?
100%.
But even then, they might not go for that guy because he's a little too harsh, a little too rough around the edges. You don't have to be conceited to be convinced.
Yeah. Oh, that's very well put. Yeah.
And my mantra is you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're going to be modest, then you're going to get modesty. and that's why I just don't want to do it. You know,
Like
I mean, my everyday struggle, man, is like, I'm 40. I'm about to be 41, and there is that old adage of me growing up where when I was in my 20s and we were still trying to make it for free beer at the VFW, I was like, man, if I'm not famous by 28, I'm going to kill myself. Just that very despondent, just, it was terrible. And then when I hit 30, I was just like, I don't need to be doing this.
Right.
I need to give it up. And but you can quit it, but it won't quit you.
Yeah.
And it's been a hard road for me to realize that, to where it's like, even now I've been, when I had my kid and, my son was born, I decided to like go and work at a company, and I was like, I'm going to retire here.
Right.
And I've done that twice in my life, 3 times technically, but like each time I've done it, it's always left me on my ass. And that's where I'm at right now, is where I lost my job 7 weeks ago. And then now it's like I'm going on tour for 67 days. So, and it's frightening, but at the same time, it's like, this is where I know I need to be. It's like, sometimes the universe will give you signs, and if you're going to be an asshat and not pay attention to them, well, it's kind of, you're on your own.
Yeah, totally, man. And like I said, you're putting your best foot forward. Like, these are like we talked about, like, these are the skills that you have acquired that you are good at, man. Like, you need to capitalize on them. So totally.
There's nothing else that I've worked harder at in my life than music. And it always hasn't been the best trajectory, or maybe I've made poor decisions along the way, but a lot of those are heavily involved with me not believing in myself. And I mean, I don't want to do a whole Tony Robbins thing, but it's just like, that's exactly what it is, and now it's just like, some days you just got to put your foot down and be like, this is what I need to do.
Yes.
And you're going to have to take a gamble. I mean, life, take into consideration the fucking pandemic and everything that we've dealt with. Every decision we've made for the last 2 or 3 years has been a gamble.
Oh yeah.
We've had kids in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh,
like,
my
this
God,
has been a fucking gamble.
Totally.
Sorry, but it's just like,
no, you are not wrong, man.
Yeah.
There's one thing I would like to go back to. You had mentioned, like, kids in small towns and stuff like that. And like, I mean, I know where Ripley is. Like, what advice? Like, let's say there's a kid in like a Ripley or a Halls or a Covington or an Atoka that is looking at that wants to do music as a career, but they're just not sure. Is there any bit of advice that you would give to a kid that's kind of stewing on that right now?
I'll promote a few things on this, and I'm not endorsed by them. One thing that I've learned, and it's been through Adam Neely's page, was Skillshare. The last 2 years or whatever, when pandemic first started, I started building a recording studio at the house because I can't go to a recording studio.
Yeah.
And everything I needed to learn about using Ableton or Reaper. Reaper's got its own, it's a DAW, a DAW, and it's $60 if you buy it outright. And it's one of the most amazing, DAW softwares that I've ever seen. And, that has all kinds of video tutorials. It's got manuals and stuff. It's completely, you can modify it to however you see fit. If you want it to look like Pro Tools, you can do that. If you want it to look like FL, do it. It's great. But it's like the Bandcamp of DAWs, because it's owned and operated by a core group of people, and they keep it cheap, and they keep it like it's very, very low on your space, and it's wonderful. But I use that sometimes, but then I use Ableton as well for just like idea stuff, because it's so manipulative and user friendly. There's a learning curve to it, but the way I got around the learning curve was because I went on to Skillshare and I found Ableton classes on there. And so I use that because at my age, I'm computer illiterate. I didn't have a computer till I was like 27, like I just didn't, but I've always been fascinated. I wish I would have went to school for that.
Yeah.
But here I am, still learning by the seat of my pants, like I do everything else. And it takes me a lot longer than some others, because there's kids that come out here that I've seen that they just pick this shit up, go buy a MIDI controller, and then they're making beats and they're going for it.
Yeah.
And I commend them for that. That's very admirable, and it's impressive, and it makes me feel dumb sometimes.
Yeah, dude,
But-
me and Ableton don't get along. I've tried.
Well, talk to me about it, because I might be able to help. I'm still rudimentary at best, but I'm constantly learning. The thing is that the best advice I would give is that if you decide that you're going to do something, and sometimes you change your mind, it doesn't matter. But if you decide at that point, then and there, from that point on, just work at it every day. You know, like I would pick up a guitar every day, or get behind the drums every day. And I'm not the best, you know, but I beat the fuck out of those drums, and I play guitar, and people think I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
You know, but I joke around about being a bullshit artist, because I hide behind distortion and pedals and, you know, loud noises and stuff. But it's an entertainment thing to me.
Yeah.
It's like I can write beautiful songs and I can make all this stuff, but it's like I want to entertain people. And that's where, like, you know, where my stage presence and everything is that, like, you know, just own it.
Yeah.
You know, own your shit.
I think that was really cool watching you guys play at Porch Fest last time I saw y'all. Because I did an acoustic set, and then, you know, Oak Walker played, which, like, they're awesome, but it's like folk. And then you guys brought the hype so hard onto that porch. I forgot we were on a porch for a second. I thought we were at like a venue. I was like, dude, the hype was real.
Thanks.
Man. Yeah. So you are definitely skilled in bringing the hype for sure, man.
I appreciate that.
Very cool. If it's cool with you, I would like to touch a little bit on your time. You talked about working for Breedlove and stuff. Could we talk a little bit about your time as a luthier, if you want to? If you don't want to, it's totally fine.
No, it's great. That was, again, when I got out of high school, I just wanted to be close to music, and I moved to Memphis, you know, to be close to music. And then I got a job at Gibson, and I loved Gibson guitars. I don't now. I'm sorry, but I don't. I mean, I worked at the Memphis branch, and I worked there for a really long time. I worked on every part of the floor in the departments.
That's
you
really
know,
cool.
from building bodies to being on the neckline to, you know, everything except setups and painting.
Okay.
Finishing. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, I did all that. And then I started working at home wanting to build guitars. And then, like I said, I got fired from Gibson. And after that, I was just like, well, fuck it, I'll build my own guitars. And I wasn't motivated. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to do it more for me, not as a business.
Yeah.
I've never desired I don't want to be behind the scenes. You know, I did production for 20 years too, where I was guitar tech, bass tech, drum tech, and then stage tech. And, you know, I was stage handing and stuff like that. I worked monitors and stuff like that. And I did that because I was just close to the music. And I always, like, would meet people and introduce myself, get business cards and stuff. And I always thought that, like, when it was my time to get out on the road, that's where I was going to cash in on all those favors.
Yeah.
And then here we are, and I had never really got a chance to. But lo and behold, I moved out to Oregon because there were some people there that were looking for old Gibson employees. And some of my friends had already moved up there. And I'd just been in that tornado. I was in a tornado in 2013, and I just lost everything. Ironically, the only thing that made it through there was my Gibson SG.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I was in a third-story apartment complex in Washington, Illinois, and my guitar flew 100 yards at least, like a football field. There's a golf course next to the apartment. And my guitar, like, everything was gone and broke and destroyed. All my papers, everything from the kid, you know, was just gone. No memories, no more, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the only thing that made it was that damn guitar. And I've always said I'm going to, like, write SKB and tell him this story because it was in an SKB case.
Oh, wow.
And the only thing that had affected the drop or whatever of that guitar case was that there's just a slight bend in like the bow of where the body sits, to where it's just like the metal ring or whatever, like the kind of where it sits in between one another. It got bent a little bit from when it hit the ground, probably. I mean, that sucker had to have been pulled up into the tornado.
Oh my goodness!
I shit you not. I mean, power lines were down and everything. And this was an apartment complex of, like, I think 12 or 16 different buildings, units, or not units, buildings. And that was the only thing that made it out. I mean, like, a tree fell on my Explorer knocked all the windows out and stuff. And like I drove that to my brother's house with no windows, and it was November 17th, I think it was what it was. It was November 17th. It was 30 something degrees out, and I'm driving 30 minutes to my brother's house with no windows or with a guitar in the back.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So if SKB listens to this, I'm your endorsement right here.
This podcast brought to you by SKB.
Yeah. Well, because I'm about to fly out on the 9th, and I mean, the only guitar case that I have that I think is TSA regulated, I haven't looked into this yet, but would probably be that SKB case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the rest of them are like Gator cases and stuff that I have, but this is the only one that would probably, I mean, if it can withstand a tornado, it can withstand any rigors of flying.
Yeah.
So,
dude, that is
crazy.
That is an incredible story. Do you still have that SG, or did you get rid of it?
Absolutely.
I was gonna say,
I'm getting it set up tomorrow because
Cool.
I haven't played it in a long time, and I'm getting it set up tomorrow because that's going to be my touring guitar, my front guitar. I want to take one of my Fenders because they're just road horses, but because I have to get a Pelly case or something that to where it can ride, because I'm afraid that like if I take it apart and put it in a suitcase in a rider, that like I got to meet up with the band in Vegas and putting it back together without all my tools, trying to hodgepodge it might not work out.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a gamble. So I'm either going to buy a Pelly case for that, for my Bullet or whatever, or I'm just going to take the SG. Or maybe both. We'll see.
I got you. There is a question I've wanted to ask you since I found out you worked at Gibson Guitars and stuff. Is like, and this could be a personal opinion thing too, like, if you know how to work on gear, which you obviously do, like, does buying an upper mid-range guitar matter as opposed to like a lower-end guitar if you know how to work on them?
No. So to go back to what you were asking, I moved to Breedlove. I was out there for maybe 6 to 8 months. It was wonderful. They had asked me to move out there, and I wasn't like anybody great or whatever, but I told them, I was like, it's going to cost me a lot to move out there. They gave me a price for me to move out there. I told them that wasn't good enough. I asked for a little bit more, and they agreed upon it.
Okay.
And so I was getting paid more than most of the guys that were starting out there.
Yeah.
And then they had a problem in their QC department where they had bought, like, this was around the same time that Gibson was going through the federal investigation of their Rosewood, their Indian Rosewood or whatever, I think is what it was. And then somebody from QC, like, biffed a job where they spent, like, I don't remember what the number was. It was millions of dollars of wood that they had went to go QC. And then when they brought it back to the States, it was all rotten on the pallets.
Oh no!
And it was rendered useless, and so they went ahead and like all across the board cut the staff in half, and we're talking about people with seniority and then people like myself who had just started.
Oh no!
And so there I was. I just spent $2,400 to move out there, and just started getting out of that hole, and then they laid me off.
Oh no!
So I stuck around for a couple months, met some cool people, played some gigs and stuff like that. But inevitably, it was like there was no way to sustain myself financially, and I ended up moving back to Memphis, and that's where all of this started.
Yeah. So what? Is there a musical reason that you decided to come back to Memphis?
Family. First off,
Yeah.
I mean, this is where my mother's at, and
Yeah.
I don't ever like to leave her for too long.
Totally. Yeah,
I'm a mama's boy, so
it's okay. My folks are like literally right there,
I
so I totally understand.
I totally get it. I've been very much like a gypsy vagabond person most of my life, and because I don't know. It's fascinating.
I think that's really cool. Like that's very admirable. My guest last week, Leanne, she did like the cruise ship thing. She did musical theater on cruise ships and
I'd
stuff.
love to do that.
Yeah, dude. She said if you are a mobile person, if you want to be gone for a couple months and make good money, she's like cruise ships are where it's at. So
I've had my friend Doyle did that for a while.
Really?
And he played on the cruise ship with a band, and I'd always like when he was doing it, I was like, man, can I talk to somebody or. How do I get on that? And I've always wondered, because I always just want to be where you're moving, and you're in some place different, and you know what I mean. Like when I sit around home or whatever, I get restless, and I've always tried to work on the road and stuff like that, just because that's what it feeds my soul or whatever, and but inevitably at the end of the day, no matter what I'm doing on the road, I was always wishing it was doing music, touring. So that's where, like, when I came back to Memphis from Oregon, I decided that I was going to just put myself out there. I was going to whore myself out musically. And so like I was trying to do session work. I was trying to play with bands that needed somebody to fill in. There's an echelon of folks here in Memphis where I'm not anywhere near them, but like I'm always constantly trying to better myself and get to that point.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to be like Mem famous. You know what I mean? Like I want to be from Memphis and I want to rep my team and I want to rep my town. But to stay here and just keep doing music, you know, working 5-6 nights a week, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you want to like this is your hometown, but yeah, like I think that's one thing that is very evident just knowing you as a person is like you stay busy, man. Like you're always you're working at it.
I'm not as busy as I want to be.
Yeah.
But there's a shift that's happening now. I mean, with Porch Fest and with me going out on tour and with people are starting to pick the pieces up from this distraught element that we've been in for the last few years. Totally. I mean, you know, I'm not saying people aren't talking about it or not acknowledging it, but I think people are just I've been saying it since the beginning of the pandemic is that, you know, eventually somebody's going to have to dip their toes in the water and start living again.
Right.
Because, you know, the great silence, as I call it, you know, where we've all been locked in our fucking houses, everybody's hated it, you know? And then it's like, and then we're coming out and like, it's like the groundhog, you know, seeing his shadow it's surreal.
Yeah, totally, man.
But I think people are starting to warm up to the idea again.
Yeah, like forgetting it was so weird to me. Like I didn't go to Music Fest, but knowing that like Music Fest, I'm having memory card issues.
Okay,
it's fine. We got BCam. That's why that BCam is there.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't know that Music Fest. This is like the first time in 3 years. Like, holy crap, dude. Yeah.
I feel bad that I didn't go and attend, but you know we had stuff going on this weekend.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, there's no. I wanted to go see Josh. Shout out to Josh Shaw who just played his first.
Fam.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, buddy.
Yeah.
But, I would have gone to see Josh, but that's basically it.
I messaged him like I do, and I'm so that's another thing that I'll touch on is like, you know, our friends, the people around us. You know, I've been booking shows for 5 years now or something like that in town. I've hosted a lot of bands and let a lot of people crash at my house and stuff. And again, that kind of goes back to the thing I was saying earlier where it's like, you know, just kind of one day I'm going to cash in on those favors.
Yeah.
And this is like now things are starting to pick up again. It's going to be this time.
Yeah.
And I think now I'm just going to be like no holding back and just go for it.
Yeah. The season of Josh Stevens is at hand, man.
Season of Stevens, yeah.
Season Stevens.
Yeah.
Dude, I believe it. That leads me to a really good question. What do you think makes what makes a good musical community to you?
Camaraderie, solidarity. You know, I mean, I know.
I think that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. The not competition. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of contention in lots of scenes, stuff that we've all grown up and seen. You know, from the 70s to the 80s and stuff like that, where everybody was kind of battling to be the best. When really at the end of the day, I think there's a clarity that kind of comes from, at least with some people, or maybe it's just because I'm getting older and I don't give a shit about being cool. Is that you want to be able, you should be able to elevate others. I came from when I first started my band back in the when I was 20 and so, like Manova and stuff, like we were shithead rock stars and we thought we were going to rule the world. And we were kind of pompous and arrogant. I mean, I definitely was. Yeah. And, you know, but I've definitely humbled myself a lot more because that wasn't the attitude that I wanted to have. Yeah. And so I kick myself in the ass. It's all about perspective too. You want to talk about a community, it's your own personal perspective. How you perceive, again, what you're going to get out versus what you put in. Totally. And, you know, if you want to thrive in a scene or a community, if you want to broaden the bubble or the parameters in which you coincide, in which you operate in, you have to be open and you have to be more of an appraisal as opposed to someone who is trying to be confounded and push, you know, bog people down.
Yeah, I think
Music elitism is like that's so 2005. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
fucking leave it at the door.
yeah. I think there's a famous Chris Cornell quote. Rest in peace. They said sincerity is the new punk rock,
Yeah,
and I totally believe that. Like people who are good and honest with each other and are great to be around. Those are the people that I see thriving in this area right now.
Yeah.
You know, like the people that are trying to be cutthroat for gigs. Like, I mean, there's so many venues around here. If you're trying to like be cutthroat and stuff, like the phone's gonna quit ringing right now.
Yep.
So,
and truth be told, if you're worth your salt, you don't have to fight for gigs.
right.
And I'm not saying that applies to me necessarily. I'm just saying in general, you know, because there's places in town that like I haven't played. I've never played DKDC. I've never played Young Avenue Deli. You know, but I see people that get those shows or have gotten those shows or played those shows in the past. And I hated this, but like I definitely had that mindset. Like, why not me?
Yeah, same thing, man. Yeah, totally.
That is a mind killer right there. Yeah. That if there's any advice I could give to anybody who's listening to this, especially younger people or even current, just fucking drop that shit. Because it's not if it will be you if you make it so.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Instead of wondering why they're getting it, find out how. Find out who they talk to. Shit, talk to those fucking groups.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not rocket surgery. But like these are all things that it took me a long time to figure out. So maybe there's a little more to it, but it's just communication, just being a cool person and like being open and apt to finding the things that you desire and then going for them.
Yeah, that's very well put. You know, like I hear a lot about like they are not the competition. Your previous self is the competition, kind of thing. Like what could you do differently to get those gigs as opposed to like they're getting picked over you? You know, like what can you do? What are they doing that you might be able to learn from to get those kind of gigs?
You know, everybody there's not anybody in this town that can't do what I do. You know, like in terms of technical ability or whatever.
Yeah,
you know? Like I will say that like if I'm mediocre or above mediocre, rudimentary at drums or guitar or whatever, it's that like, you know, getting on stage, the stage presence and the performance that I put, there's a lot of other elements in it, you know, because you can be the best guitar player in your basement or in your bedroom, but that's all you're going to be if you don't get out and play with other people.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and I think that where my qualities are is that like I pick up on stuff really fast. I know a lot of different styles. I can play with anybody. I can do just about any type of style, and that's just because I'm hungry to learn. And you know that old saying, it's like if you're the best player in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, totally. I think there is a market for people that can, you know, this has been kind of my bread and butter here lately. It's just like being that guy that people can call and they know you can handle the gig. You know, like you just being that guy that can, and like somebody like you, like. You know, who is stylistically proficient on so many instruments. I know if I call you for a gig, like it's gonna get handled. You know, like there's a market for people like that. Yeah. So no, I totally agree.
Another strong, hard-headed lesson that I've had to learn. Excuse me. The type of person that I am, Keegan, is that I am not very secure and confident at utilizing my talents or trying to put myself out there. Yeah. It's taken a long time to get to this point. And it used to be where, you know, because you get out, like Memphis is a drinking town, city. People love, I mean, I've brought friends from out of town and they come here. It's like, what else do you do besides drink and eat food? It's like, that's it. I mean, that's that.
No, I mean, we got great food. We got great booze. Yeah. What else do you want?
I think we have some museums here. You know,
we've got a botanical garden. There we go.
Dixon, all that shit. But like, you know, you don't get a core group of 20 or 30 people that are going to, let's go fucking out to Dixon, bro. You know, let's go look at the flowers, man. Yes, those people exist. I do. I know some of my really good friends who would love to do that stuff.
Totally.
But that's like 4 or 5 people at best. Yeah. But like, no, people hang out in the bars and they go see music or they go see comedy. That's what most of our friends are. Yeah. You know, arts and stuff like that. And that's great. But a lot of the discussions that I have with people are, you know, between 10 and 2 at night. And we make all these big, wonderful plans. And then I will call them the next day. And it's always like they've sobered up and they're like, well, you know, man, I got this I got this thing, and it's like I just don't have the time. It's like, man, you had the time last night.
Yeah.
What changed? It's just because like, and I'm the kind of person too that kind of have a tendency to put myself. I mean, before pandemic, there was a point in time where I was in like 17 different outfits, and people used to brag. He's like, oh, Josh is playing, there's 90 bands and he plays in, 60% of them or something stupid like that. And there's a lot of guys like Graham Winchester who do that too. And I think that's great. But like, again, after having my kid, it's like now I have to just kind of like, not only pandemic, but now I taper off. Because it's like I can't just be there for everybody, and like if I'm not getting paid.
Yeah, totally.
Because now I have mouths to feed, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, I do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and it's maybe just the circles that I'm running in more so now, but for a long time, the Memphis scene was a lot of like grind it out for like maybe a door deal or for the exposure or play on these like 20 band bills and stuff like that. And I feel like that's starting, it could be just my own perception, but I feel like that's starting to happen less and less around town.
What parts not
like
happening?
I just feel like musicians are starting to value getting paid more around town.
As well they should.
Yeah, and like this is over the course of like 5 years, and it could just be the circles I'm running in.
There's there's things where like I've been trying to do the Last Waltz thing to be an all ages show for the longest time, which that will, when I bring it back this year, that will hopefully be where it's going to go. My goal has been with that. I mean, we've done it 4 years now, and then it got I quit before the pandemic. Said I wasn't ever going to do it again. I didn't want to do it because we weren't getting paid, enough to where I could compensate everyone.
Yeah.
And I think there's even, I think there's some people that got mad at me. Like Jim Spake played with us, and I've never been able to speak to him again. And I tried to pay him, and he just, I don't know. He never reached back out to me. Oh. And that guy, like, he played with Levon Helm.
Oh, wow.
And like, I didn't want to upset him. So if he's listening, I mean, sorry, dude. Like, I'll pay you.
We're trying, man. We're trying.
But I mean, it was great. It was great to share the stage with him, and he did a fantastic job. But I mean, and I might just be speaking out of school. Like I don't know. It's been a lot of years since that happened, and I've slept since then. But I mean, if anybody hears this, and if I didn't pay you in the past, just let me know. I'll pay you because like I try to reach out. But when you have 32 people,
right?
And it's just like I had to my pay stubs and stuff like that, and it's hard to navigate. And then also, like I said, that last one that we did, it was just, we didn't get paid very well. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, man, the turnout was way more than this. And so I said that I'm not going to do it again unless I get a guarantee.
I think having done it 4 years, right? Yeah. And it's kind of a staple now. I do think it's worth its
I'm also going to hire somebody to take care of all that.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to be the conductor, then I don't need to be worrying about the money too.
Right, yeah.
Because that's very difficult to do. And I don't like dealing with money. I'm also the kind of person that like I will come up straight fucking to your face and I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And if you leave and if I forget to pay you, I'm just putting this out there. Like, let me know.
Yeah.
Because, instead of harboring animosity, because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm screwing them out.
I do feel like, because I definitely want to go back to the Last Waltz thing and elaborate on it. But I guess what I was getting at is like, what I'm seeing, and like I said, it could be just me, is like the Memphis scene is, it used to be a question mark of, are we getting paid? And now it's a statement of like, we are getting paid.
Yeah.
Like that's,
pay me now.
Yeah. That is the ideological shift that I have seen. And it could be the musicians that I'm playing with now are just much more older or like have been on the scene longer or something like that. But the days of like, how is this going to work out monetarily is a lot less of a conversation question and more of a conversation,
Well, if you're good at anything, never do it for free.
Yeah.
And if you are playing at now, there's going to be a very blurred line here in what we're about to discuss. And I don't want to come off as classist because I've been on both sides of this. I think we all have. If you're inexperienced and you're getting up there just for the first time, or you're fleshing shit out, then no, you're not going to get paid $250 sorry.
Right.
You know, maybe if you work it out, maybe if you have some kind of, you know, you have to be savvy with those things. These are also things that come through trials and tribulation, trial and error. And, you know, I've spent most of my life not getting paid. You know, it wasn't until I started going out on tours that when I come back and people are like, hey man, will you come and do this thing? Fill in for us. It's like, where's the money, you know? And then, like, you know, back when we were still promoting the EP and stuff, when it was still fresh, it was like I had adapted this moniker of like, fuck you, pay me. You know, it was going to be shirts and it was going to be stickers and all kinds of stuff. And then I didn't get money, so I didn't get them made, but they're coming back. And then I ended up making 4 shirts that just said exposure. And we played to a room of no one.
Yeah.
You know, it was there, and there was like 10 bands on a thing, and nobody was there to see us. You know, we're the old guys. And, you know, we didn't sell our tickets, you know, for the pay-to-play stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, like, I mean, I haven't seen one of those shows in a while. But yeah, I do. I know exactly where you're coming from. I used to feel like I was paying my dues for those kind of like huge band bill shows. And I met some great dudes doing this. Like, we had a blast. Like, it was not a bad time doing it. But at some point your time becomes much more valuable. To where it's like you just can't afford. I mean, like, you're a dad, you know, man. Like, it's like if I'm going out to do something, there's got to be some kind of career trajectory or monetary incentive.
It's about knowing your worth.
Right. Exactly.
And if you feel like you're worth your weight in salt or whatever, you know, then that's just another thing that you have to go for.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're discussing it and how hard it is for us. You know, sorry to be that guy, but not sorry. It's like, imagine how it is for a lot of these women.
Yes, no, totally.
Because, you know, they get, I mean, I've seen it and I hear about it more so now. How they get fucked over more than we do. Yeah. And it's just unfair. And I mean, again, you know, this kind of segues to like what we were talking about prior. I'll plug it. It was like when I first came back to Memphis back in 2014, I had started this, you know, there was a Facebook group chat where I had asked people if they would be willing to be a part of this. And it started off as doing like a collective of, you know, like these one-off shows where you pick a band or pick an album and you do a series of their songs or whatever. It's themed, you know. I wanted to do it where it's like I wanted to pick these albums that I favored and that are revered amongst a group of people, where it's like I know the musician aspect would love to play it, and then I know there would be a core group of people that would come out and want to see this, whether it be to support their friends or support the music that they love, because they, you know, either the band's defunct or you'll never be able to afford to see them, or they just haven't, you know, they've been disbanded for a long time. And so that was the initial inception of COMA, which was Coalition of Musical Advocates, or Coalition of Memphis Musical Advocates. Like, and I wanted to do that, and I had a bunch of people that were on board to do it, but I don't think at the time, because I was so busy doing all the other things that I wasn't ready to start curating that. It wasn't until I did The Last Waltz where I started learning how to do all of that, where I was able to herd multiple people at one time, because man, it's a lot of work to keep a lot of musicians in line and to coordinate people's schedules and stuff like that. I didn't have a practice space to do all that. And the kind of person I am, I feel like I have that, a lot of that falls on me responsibly. Yeah. And instead of relying on somebody else's practice space or somebody else's time, that we do it at their house, or, you know, that's a lot to ask of somebody else when they just want to maybe provide their time.
Yeah. And I think one of the big fears of coordinating a large endeavor like that too is like, if you entrust somebody, like if they're rehearsing at your practice space, like, you know, it's going to get done. And so I totally see where you're coming from. Cause like if somebody is like, okay, we're like this, you know, cause, with The Last Waltz was like multiple different, groups kind of coming together to do that whole thing. Like if one group is like, okay, we're going to handle it. And then they fall through, like it's still on you, cause you're coordinating that project. So I totally see where you're coming from.
The most beautiful takeaway for me of the time doing The Last Waltz was the opportunity to play with people that I never would have had the chance to just doing my rock band.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I might have been able to sit in with some of those people, but it also opened a lot of doors. I mean, this is why we're here.
Yeah. Like we became friends through the Last Waltz.
Yeah, and you, me, and your brother, and then of course Zach who came in, Victoria, everyone.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I'm so grateful to any and all of you who decided to do that, because that's more than I could ever ask for. That's the shit I live for now. Is bringing people together, having a good time, and seeing this thing that we put all this work into, and how other people receive it, and how much joy it brings them. Like, God, man, there's really no greater feeling.
Yeah, totally, man.
And so now I was worn out, because there was a lot of negativity towards that, where it was kind of hard to herd people. Some people weren't into it, and sometimes some people just don't want to work like that. And I think that my work aesthetic has a tendency to drive a wedge, because it's like another inevitable aspect about doing this kind of stuff, whether you're an artist or whatever facet, is that no one is ever going to work towards your goal as hard as you do.
Right.
You might have people that'll back you, that want to be on your team, but you can never expect more from them that you're willing to give in or put in. And don't ever ask them to do anything that you wouldn't necessarily do yourself.
Totally.
So, when you have somebody that's going to, fight you or be against what you want to do, sometimes you have to take that with a grain of salt, and then, not let it discourage you. Of course, I mean, the last one that we did, we were also, my band was, or Jason's band, our band, whatever, we're in the middle of recording at the same time.
Oh, wow.
We were doing rehearsals, and it was a lot of work.
I did not
And
know that.
we were definitely splitting. Yeah, we all discussed it. Like we wouldn't do that again. You know what I mean? Because it's like a lot of people are trying to balance jobs,
Yeah.
or home lives, and other musical aspirations that's not involved with this one-time thing. So it's like you have to be very careful and considerate to other people's feelings. And I think that's something that was like, it was a little hard for me. That was a lesson learned.
Gotcha.
But going forward, instead of thinking that we can get it all done within a month prior to the show, I'm probably going to do like 2-3 months,
I think it's, yeah.
Or to send homework home
Yeah.
with people. And then when we come in rehearsal, if you don't make the cut, you're gone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's too big of a request, especially, with your aspirations of getting everybody paid and stuff like that. I don't think that's too big of an ask at all. So.
Well, and because I'll start asking for guarantees, and I'll start having my own people work doors or whatever
Right.
I got to do. And the thing is that like I definitely took a cue from like Quincy Jones, where it's just like, if you're going to delegate, and do that right. And it's like I don't want to be the person waving the fist and carrying the baton and whatnot, but somebody's got to take it up.
Yeah, totally.
And I tried to make it happen, thinking it was just going to be a collective thing where it's like, oh, everybody's going to see me eye to eye on everything. That's not how it works.
Right. Yeah.
So you live and learn.
Yeah. So we've talked extensively about aspects of the Last Waltz. So we should probably talk about what the Last Waltz is.
Yeah, we probably should, shouldn't we?
I was thinking about that. I was like, man, we should just go ahead and get. So, what is the Last Waltz?
The Last Waltz is it is a final concert from the band. Who is also most notable for being Bob Dylan's backing band from when he went electric. They played Woodstock. They did Take a Load Off Annie. The Weight. That was in a Sprint commercial or some shit years ago.
Yeah.
But they were a quintessential band. What I've found out now is that I thought they were just always a rock and roll band, and they were kind of hard to pin down in terms of what their style or what their genre was, because, they were enveloped around the late 60s, around what they tell, all the psychedelic bands and stuff like that. And you see these guys that are wearing like super drab, kind of like Civil War style clothing, and everybody else is wearing paisley and bell bottoms and, Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. And so they everybody thought they looked weird, but they're like technically the ones that looked the most normal. I guess.
Yeah. Not even...
But they were cool, and they wrote these really beautiful like songs. They were songwriters that wrote like classic. They are the birth of Americana.
I can see that. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people kind of gravitate towards that now. And even if, I'm not the only one that's done tributes to them. They've been being done for a long time.
Yeah.
But now even Nashville has picked it up They did.
Really?
Oh yeah. I made jokes about how like Nashville wasn't doing it until I did it, and then all of a sudden they're getting like Warren Haynes and all these other like
Oh, come
big
on.
name people.
Warren, come to Memphis, dude.
Dude,
Come
yeah,
on.
Warren, if you're listening, like you got to get on my team, bro.
I'm gonna
Because
email
like
you.
Devin Allman was like we kind of have this short history where I almost played in his old band Honey Tribe back in the day. I was going to be his drummer.
Whoa.
Yeah, his bass player was a super nice guy. I met him outside of a show, got to meet him and stuff. And I'd been trying to reach out to Devin, and then he was recording a band like right before the last waltz we did.
Mm-hmm.
He was up at Hightone. We were hanging out. I was like, dude, hey, I just wanted to reintroduce myself. And we sat there and shot some tequila, and we talked about it, and he was on board.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think just time got away, and then he wasn't able to do it. But like he would have been like a heavy hitter to do.
Totally.
You know? And so like I definitely would love to get some more notable people. But I mean, it's the Memphis Last Waltz. Like I want to give praise to the Memphis people, but I also know what it takes to get some more heads in the door.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think
I want to do it at the Levitt Shell one day.
that would be absolutely wonderful.
Not in November, like in the summer.
Yeah.
Because now that everybody's doing it around, so the Last Waltz was done at Winterland back in, I think it was 71 or 72, something like that. And it was the last show they did at Winterland because that was the first place that they played as a band. And they had all these guest spots like Muddy Waters and, you know, Neil Diamond, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, you know, I mean, everybody you can think of, Van Morrison, Dr. John,
Yeah.
you know, and Joni Mitchell, just the endless, Eric Clapton, blah, blah, blah. You look it up online, The Last Waltz. It's a documentary. Martin Scorsese did it, and it was wonderful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a beautiful piece of music and art, and it's wonderful. So, what I was trying to do is I wanted to do it at the Levitt Shell during the summer because they did it on Thanksgiving, and it's kind of cold then.
Yeah.
And so it would be really good to do that during the summer, like at some of those all ages outdoor shows at the Levitt Shell.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And that's been my goal. I've been trying to talk to somebody. Every time I do a podcast or an interview with anybody, I put it out there. If anyone knows somebody I could reach to at the Levitt Shell to make that happen, I want to do it.
Yeah, dude.
This is the year, like the next couple years, I want to get this done.
Yeah, that sounds. I think like having done it before, that's just like the perfect venue for that, too. It reminds me. You were talking about getting some bigger names and stuff, but like the camaraderie, and like honestly, just getting to meet. Like you and I already hinted at. Like I have met so many of my good musician friends from this town just doing that gig. Because you bring in people from so many different avenues and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, my buddy Chris Watts, who plays in a band, he's from Nashville, a band called Dirt Reynolds. You know, he was one of the first people, like, when I asked him, he was just like, fuck it, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I've had him back, and then you, your brother Keith, my buddy Cotton Clifton, who's also out in Nashville now. You know, Good Time Honky Tonk. Shout out to him. And Chris Watts, man, because like you know, both those guys they're great. And they're doing good big things.
Oh, totally. And I think Chris is singing on Broadway right now, isn't he? I think he's like singing cover gigs on Broadway too.
Yes. I thought you meant Broadway, like
no,
Broadway.
sorry.
I was like, okay.
No, Broadway in Nashville.
No, yeah, he does the Broadway thing. I came out and saw him not too long ago. Yeah, man, and Broadway is that's a beast in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a hustle, man.
It is, and. Yeah, man. Because I mean, I was talking during pandemic about moving to Nashville because, well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of musicians moved out of there.
Yeah,
there is a. I'll give a nod to Cotton for taking me out to this house in Nashville a few months ago. It was this pedal steel player's birthday, and we're in this house and they're doing a fish fry, and all these musicians, like these local musicians and stuff, Nashville players, like get together in this dude's living room. And there's just, 20, 30 people or whatever. We're just all packed in there, assholes to elbows. And they just start playing all this old honky tonk tunes,
Oh, wow.
Like Johnny Paycheck and Merle, Willie, just all the good stuff.
Yeah.
George Jones, any of that stuff, that old country, old honky tonk stuff. The Hank stuff and just like the stuff that we all grew up listening to at some point in time.
Yeah.
That wasn't a part of my upbringing, but like I love it. And just seeing these fantastic musicians get together, and they're just doing it for fun, just to hang out and, hang out on this dude's birthday. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Oh, that's
that
so
like
cool.
I didn't put together or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the last waltz is always going to hold a special place in my heart, but like I have not been that excited about a piece of musical history happening in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the first time playing.
Really?
You know what I mean? And of course, Cotton and I got up, like I got behind the drums and he played some guitar. We played some like songs, and it was just so much fun, man. Like I was nervous because like these guys again are in a caliber of their own,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
way above me. But like sometimes when that happens, I don't shy away from it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I just want to get in. I want to be a part of it. Let me do this.
Yeah.
Give me my chance. And it's like I might not be able to hold my own fully on everything, but it's like I just want to be a part of it and see what I can do.
Yeah, totally, man.
And as soon as I got done playing, like I was sitting outside smoking, and like all these guys were like, man, you're really good. Like, dude, we should hook up and blah blah blah. It's like next time you're in town, like come on, we'll do a show and stuff. I was like, yes, that's what I want.
Yes, that's wonderful, dude.
I've been trying to do, bridge that gap between Memphis and Nashville for a long time, because the stigma that we know of Nashville is the same that a lot of people carry about Memphis. When
Yeah.
you go out of town, Memphis, people know Goner Records, and that's about it. Or they know Elvis.
Yeah.
And so instead of me, and I got nothing against that. That's fine. I'm not an Elvis fan. I don't listen to Goner. I know people that are on that record label that are really close friends, and they're really good people, and
Right.
they do really great music. And that's an entity in and of itself that like deserves praise and adulation.
Right.
My goal is to try to educate people on the other things that Memphis has to offer, such as what the communities and the people that we're with, Like,
Yeah.
I think that's when you're out there, you're promoting, if you're repping your team, rep all of it.
Yeah, totally, man. I think that's a very good point, because I do the same thing with Nashville too. It's like the Broadway gigs and the this, that, and the other, and like it would be really disingenuous of me to want everyone to see how complex Memphis is
Yeah.
without embracing that same complexity in the Nashville music scene too.
I mean, if you go to Broadway, you're going to hear, Dierks Bentley or Eric Church or any of that stuff. I mean, it's a crux, dude. Like Broadway's not, that's where you go to make your money.
Yeah, well, like Broadway is as much Nashville, I guess, as Beale is Memphis.
I was just about to say that. You go down Beale Street on any given Sunday, you're going to hear fucking Mustang Sally, you're going to hear cocaine, and you're going to hear all that stuff,
Yeah.
and you're going to hear it done to death.
Right.
You're going to hear anything by Al Green, Love and Happiness probably.
Right.
But like you're not going to hear Tribal Tenderness or any of these other things. You're not going to hear a lot of Marvin Gaye. You're not going to hear Otis. You
Right.
know? And when you do, you're going to kind of pipe up a little bit, and then you're going to be like, that's going to separate you from the tourists. You're going to be like, okay, I dig that.
Right.
And I've seen it, I've heard it, but those people that play down there, like that's their gig, that's their money maker, you know? And it's like, I hope that they get more opportunities, because man, there's so many good musicians down there on Beale Street. And that's another thing too, is that like with the Memphis DIY community, you have these people that are fighting for these scraps and trying to do these shows, but then
Yeah.
you got this other element that's downtown.
Right.
And then there's the Cooper Young or the Goners and stuff. And like rarely do these three
Yeah.
places or whatever, like they don't coincide, they don't coalesce.
Right.
And it sucks, I mean, maybe some places it does, maybe some people do, but
I mean, I it would be hard to believe that there would be no overlap, but I totally understand what you're saying. There's like the Midtown scene, like the Madison Avenue, and in the Cleveland scene,
Yep.
and then there's the Cooper Young scene. And I was actually listening to the radio one day, and they were talking about one of the logistical problems with the city is how just like spread out the city of Memphis is.
Yep.
And I think the music scene makes that very apparent. It's like it's like every time like it makes it really hard to cross paths with newer people that are playing like on Beale and stuff like that, So
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you mean.
well, and we're even omitting the most obvious is like, the Rock and Raleigh, the Bartlett crowd.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of places, like one of the first gigs I ever played in Memphis was at Stage Stop.
That place is, so I have a story about the Stage Shop too. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
no. like
I feel like if you don't have a story about Stage Top, you haven't played in Memphis. You know, like
the plans for the Last Waltz right now, is that planned for November right now, or
I
is
don't
it
know
just
yet.
is it
I'm just
incubating
now-
still?
I'm just now starting to talk about it. Like after what? Here's the thing. I've talked to Matt at Black Lodge. I can't speak for them yet because we don't have anything set in stone.
Yeah.
But the goal was that we were gonna. So Glorious Abhor is in the middle is finishing up recording our album, and it's finished. Except I still have some vocal and some guitar stuff to do. Which now that I'm leaving for tour, that's getting pushed back again.
Gotcha.
So we were going to schedule an album release for August, which now is not going to happen. And I feel so bad because I've been saying for 5 years that like, oh, it's coming out, it's coming out, it's coming out, and I just keep pushing it back and pushing it back. I wasn't going to release it during pandemic either. No way. If I can't do a big fucking show, then what is all this for?
Yeah, totally, man.
Because you got to have the time to cut loose. But like, I think that's probably where we'll end up.
Okay.
It's just because the stage and the room. And I want to get some more of the performance artists involved.
Yeah, I think like that's a great place to do that too.
Yeah, that would be my my first choice. Inevitably, would be the Levitt Shell. I'm just dying to do it there one time, and maybe we'll do that next summer if I can. If I just really apply myself and try to find somebody I can speak to get us in there and find out what the logistics would be. Because ideally, I'd like to do it as one of their free summer shows that they were doing, and I don't know if they're ever going to do that again.
Yeah,
but
that was
maybe
cool.
I could persuade him. Who knows? But yeah, I would like to do it at Black Lodge.
Okay.
And I'm sure if I talk to Matt and them, that's over the last few years since they've now opened. Like Matt's been a buddy of mine for a long time. Like when I first moved here.
Okay.
He would probably hate it, but we shared a moment where we were at the Young Ave Deli back when we barely knew each other, and he's telling me, man, you're a really good musician. You should come play Black Lodge. And I never got to play any of the old Black Lodge parties when they were at 831.
Oh, really?
And I never got to see any of them until the last show that they had, the last party.
Oh, man.
When it was just like they were leaving the place.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like seeing the videos, that like, man, I really missed out on something special. But instead of looking back, let's look forward.
Yeah, totally.
And they're still doing great things. It's a wonderful venue, and I'm glad that they're still able to do what they do, because having a rental place like that it's important.
Yeah, like that's just to me, like that's such a cool idea for a space too. Like we're gonna make a live venue and a movie rental place. What? That's awesome.
Plus, the last show that we did as Glorious was the New Year's gig.
Really?
One of the last shows, but the last show of 2019 that we did was the New Year's Eve show, and it was us with I can't remember the rap group, the hip hop duo that we were with. Lord T and Eloise.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I remember that.
We opened for them, and it was us and Chris McCoy's band and Model Zero.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it was really cool because they're like dirgy psychedelic garage, and then like we're kind of like like a psychedelic hard rock band, but then we had what I told you earlier, like we got a horn section.
Yeah.
So Glorious Abhor became a 9-piece band that night with 2 drummers.
That's so cool.
With John Adams, my drummer currently, and then my old drummer, Taylor. So they kind of shifted out. That was Taylor's last gig with us, and that was John's, like essential gig. He's played with us before as filling in for Taylor, but now he's like our full-time drummer.
Yeah.
And so we had 2 drummers and, 3 horn players, Jason Davenport, Lee McDonald, and Michael Milkshake. I can't say his last. He plays for Louise. I can't think of his last name.
Oh, sax player?
Yeah, I can't think of his last name.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Shout out to Milkshake.
Well, we'll put your name in the show notes because I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but no, he's super awesome, man.
Yeah.
They're all wonderful players, and we we did a few covers, and then we did horns on some of the GA songs, which was just, man, it was so amazing.
That's really cool.
I wish I would have recorded it. But anyway, every show that we've done at Black Lodge has just been so monumental that like I just decided that like, for big shows, that's what I want to do, is where I want to do it at.
Yeah. No, I think that's like aside from the Levitt Shell. Yeah, I totally agree.
So yeah, once I when I get off a tour or whatever, when I get back in July, or intermittently while I'm out on tour, maybe I'll speak to him about it, and I think that's where we'll have it done.
Rad, man.
But yeah, we'll slate it for Thanksgiving again this year.
Cool. I'm gonna tell my wife right now. It's on the calendar. You can't. I will play. I will be there playing whether you want me to or not. So just
Oh
so
no,
you know.
yeah, I want you there.
Cool. So going out on tour. Can you tell me how this tour came about?
Yes.
What you're doing, band, all that stuff.
So I am going out on a 67-day run with a band. They were originally from, I think they're still stationed out in Nashville, but it's a punk band called Escapado. They've been around for a really long time. They just a few years ago, I think they toured Europe. They do very grandiose, big tours. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
I've played in multiple bands that have shared bills with them, and they're all really, really nice guys. And they had a guitar player that couldn't make it, and they were asking, and I put my name in the hat, and they accepted it. They have an album that just dropped today,
Awesome.
either today or yesterday, but it's they recorded it at here in Memphis at Sun Studios.
Oh, really cool.
With Shelby Pruden and Daniel
Yeah.
Crockett Hall, and I didn't know that before I signed up with them. I had heard that they recorded at Sun, but I didn't realize that this is what came to fruition. Like the thing that we're promoting is this album that they did at Sun.
That's crazy.
So it's a bit serendipitous that I'm going to be on tour with them, Memphis guy or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of fun. And I've heard the album now, of course, at least 10 or 20 times, just learning the songs.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. So they're kind of like a hardcore punk band.
Cool.
Really fast, a lot of fun, a lot of energy. And then like this album that they did at Sun Studios was just like, they cover a Lucero song on there, which I think is terrific.
That's really cool.
And it's kind of like more mellow, a bit like, it reminds me kind of like Larry and His Flask or Goddamn Gallows,
Okay.
where it's kind of dark, like what I call pirate punk.
Yeah.
And like they've got an organ player now, which of course I love because I've got a keys player in my band.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Shout out to Jason.
Yeah, shout out to Jason Pulley, man. Yeah, so I'm really excited about this.
That sounds really cool, man.
It's like six guys in the band now, or 6 people. I'm sorry. And I've never played with them before, and I'm really excited.
Cool.
Like I've been cutting my teeth on the albums over the last few days. I mean, I'm trying to learn like 20, 30 songs in the next 9 days. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Now,
fun.
was there an audition process at all, or did you just already know them? Was it a kind of a resume thing?
I think I don't know if KD remembered me or not, but it was they made a post and I just got on there. I'm like, hey dude, I'll do it.
Okay.
And they're just like freaking out, like trying to make sure, because there's plane tickets and stuff, and
Yeah.
and they're just they're making sure that like they could get somebody that could learn all the stuff in enough time. I was like, hey man, I don't know if you remember or not, but like I played in SVU and Joy Bomb and Indeed We Digress, Glorious Abhor, like all those bands, we've all played shows together, whether I was on drums or guitar. So it's like, just trying to help jog your memory.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool. It's between you and like maybe a couple other people, but I think you can do this.
Awesome.
And he's like, just send me some videos. And then I sent some videos last night. I was like, hey, just to set your mind at ease, like this is where I'm at. And he's like, yeah, that's great. So
Fantastic, man. Now, have you ever done a run this extensive before?
not 67 days.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, not playing
Yeah.
at least. When I was doing like tech and stuff like that, yeah. The biggest bill I went out in terms of playing was when I was with Sarah Simmons, and that was when we opened up for White Buffalo, and we did like 3.5 weeks, I think,
Okay.
something like that. It was like almost a month, and it was like but it was way more mellow. That was more like top 40s kind of pop music.
Yeah.
She was a singer on The Voice and whatnot.
Okay. Cool.
And so, yeah, we ended up doing that, and I was the drummer. That was fun. But yeah, this is definitely, it's a little more up my alley.
Cool, man.
Playing punk rock is fucking like, I mean, that's what I've been doing most of my life. So it's like, it's where I feel at home.
Cool, man. Do you have any expectations? And I'm gonna follow up with that. Do you have any like apprehensions for doing a tour like this? Like, is there anything that you worry? Is there anything that you think may be unfamiliar for doing a tour this extensive, or is there anything you expect to get out of this tour?
Full discretion. The one thing I worry about the most is that when you do something like this, a lot can happen in 2.5 months. And I'm coming back the day before my birthday. You have to leave a job.
Yeah.
And I've been struggling with jobs for the last, couple months.
Yeah.
And so it's like financially, I'm not in the best place right now. Like I'm selling off a lot of gear and stuff to make sure I can do this, and then make sure I have a place to come back to.
Totally.
Because when you play in punk rock, man, even though we're doing all these dates and stuff, like they got to comp a lot of their money back, and they've got, I don't know how cool they would be. I'm not going to put out X amounts or whatever, but like, there's not going to be a whole lot of money involved with this.
Right.
This is more, it's not exposure, but it's at the same time, it's like I said earlier, like I feel like the universe is telling me, it's like, this is where you need to be and this is what you need to do. So you have to make sacrifices sometimes in order to go for what you want. And I'm just want to make sure I come home and I'm able to pay my bills and stuff while I'm gone. And that's a struggle, but at the same time, there's something invigorating about it, where it's like sometimes you just got to let go and see what happens. But and I mean, I'll put my Venmo out here. Yeah. If anybody wants to send me money,
we will put where people can find you and all that stuff too.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do some like online, acoustic gigs to do that, just to see if anybody will bite at it. I hate doing that because I'm such a prideful person, but at the same time, it's like, you gotta, you have to get away from the fact that it's like, you're not telling people to give you money for nothing. If I'm going to entertain you, if I'm playing songs and you like it, and if you want to give me money, that's fine. That's what a lot of us did through pandemic, and a lot of us, like when I did it, it kept me afloat. Yeah. And so like, I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm not going to be a beggar. I'm not going to come up to somebody and be like, man, can you hold $20? And I mean, I'm going to take an acoustic with me. I'll fucking busk like while we got downtime. Yeah. Because I don't know what else to do. As sad as it is, like we live in a capitalist society, and money does make the world fucking go around, as much as I hate it. Yeah. But
I do think a tour vlog educational series, just because I'm a giant music ed nerd, I think like some kind of educational series of just you being out on tour and navigating that long of a run with a punk band would be something I would wholeheartedly support. Like, monetarily and stuff. Otherwise, like you could do like a tour update thing. And
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, dude, I would be 100% here for that.
I'm open to suggestions because I didn't think about it so far as that. Because again, like I said, I don't believe in just asking for stuff like that. Totally. But the commodities that we deal with, especially nowadays with the advent of social media and stuff, is like, you can look at it as it's trite, or it's like it's wrong, or it's kind of sleazy, but at the same time, like, this is the way of the world now. Yeah. And it's like, adapt or die.
Right. And I've read a lot about how we're moving towards an information-based society. Yep. And information is a commodity. So if you can provide information, like, there are plenty of people that love punk music. There are plenty of people that want to tour in a band and have no idea where to start. And if you can find any way to help them avoid those hiccups, then you're providing a valuable service.
I looked at El Escapado's Spotify before, in terms of finding the songs, before they sent me the links to all of them. Mm-hmm. And what they ended up sending me was the Bandcamp stuff, which I thought that was great, because Bandcamp is infinitely better for, DIY bands. And I noticed that they had a couple hundred people that follow them or stream them monthly on Spotify. And I think a lot of it's because more people are apt to buy their material instead of Spotify. And I'm not one of those people really that's like, Spotify is kind of the devil, but at the same, I don't look at it as a money-making machine. I do look at it more as that as an opportunity to get your music out there to a broader audience than you might not be able to without a promotional company.
Yeah, it's like a musical business card to me.
It's free streaming, and you're getting pennies on the dollar back. Now, granted, we can go into the politics about it, but let's not. The person making money off of other people's music, that's kind of fucked. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like there is some kind of network involved in it. Like when we first put our EP on there were people from New Delhi that were listening to us. And wow. Like, what the fuck? Are you serious? I was like, okay, cool. So that's great and all, but like, I'm never going to see any money from that shit because, that's not to that point. Yeah. But, you still got to go out there and hustle. So, but anyway, this band is a lot bigger than I think I'm even giving it credit for, because I haven't seen it only firsthand in the experiences that I've witnessed it, you know, with like DIY shows around Memphis and Nashville and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how this is all going to pan out and what the shows are going to be like. Like, I know a lot of the venues that they've booked at that I've never been to, and I've always heard a lot of great things from my touring friends and my touring family about these places. And then like I'm like, oh, cool, now I'm going to get to see these places.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's
this
really
is exciting.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I'm jazzed, like super fired up.
No, I think that's cool, man. And like you said, the stars kind of aligned to make this. You know, the call went out and you answered the call, man. So I think that's really cool and really admirable of you for just stepping up to the plate. Being like, all right, it's time to do the dang thing.
Well, thanks. I mean, and we come back, and like I said, my birthday is on the 18th of July, which is Monday. We'll be back. We're playing a show at the Peterson compound on the 16th, which is out in Millington.
Yep. And
just played there Friday. And they're doing like I don't know if it's I think it's the pig roast or the hoot nanny. It's going to be a big show.
Okay, cool, man.
And so we'll do that. And then the weekend after that, I'm going to play at the Revel House in Clarksville.
Okay.
And trying to book a show in Nashville the day before that. So the 22nd and 23rd.
Fantastic, man.
With Glorious. That's when we're going to do our little weekend run.
Cool. I would like to talk a little bit. You said the album's still in getting the finishing touches. What did your writing process look like for this record?
Oh man,
or what does your writing process look like in general?
Sparse. I don't have a set formula. I don't think anyone really does. I wish I was one of those people that would sit down and try to write a song a day or something like that. Mostly I just go for when something hits me. It could be, I hear the music in my head sometimes, or if it's in a dream, or, whatever, like just whenever I get inspired, I'll sit down and write. But a lot of times, like, it's a very long, arduous process for me. I was watching this Leonard Cohen documentary where he talks about, it's like, he just writes and writes and he focuses so hard on something and critiques and, revisions upon revisions. And I was like, man, I do that sometimes, but like, it might take me a couple years, to really flesh something out. Yeah. Unless it's just like, if I get into that moment, like there's a song called Mean Spirited Shit Kickers that's on the new album. And I'd started writing that and the words started coming really quickly. And this is just like, once in a blue moon kind of thing. Yeah. And it started, but that was one of the ones where I really sat down. Like, this was when I was living on Madison. I was across the street from the storage unit where all my equipment was set up. Mm-hmm. And I would just go over there, like when I first started working with GarageBand, and I would just go over there and just record drums and bass and guitar and just like did a bunch of revisions of that song. And then what I did, and I thought it was a really good writing process, was that I did all the music first and then put the lyrics over it. Cool. So the lyrics and the melodies, vocal melodies, are very ostentatious, I guess was how I would put it. Like the EP that we did was like super garage and just screaming. Mm-hmm. And and then there's like Sunshine Mud, and that's just like it's really weird. It's kind of all over the place, and I don't think anybody can really pin us down from those 5 songs. Yeah. And so now we're gonna have like 13 to 16. I don't remember how it's a lot of songs, and it's gonna be very diverse. Cool. Like there's some acoustic, mellow stuff, some psychedelic, and then some like just like hardcore elements, some stoner, and
cool, man.
But it's all over the place, and I tried to like develop my writing. Where it's like I'm telling more of a story instead of being so cryptic and vague, because me being a Pumpkins fan, like that's like my ideal band, is the band that shaped me a lot of who I am. Gotcha. And they're, as much as I love that music and I think I understand it, I don't think a lot of people gravitate towards it. Mm-hmm. There's, not to make the comparison, but like Nirvana versus Smashing Pumpkins, like there's something more relatable about Kurt Cobain's music or lyrics, even though I can't understand them. Yeah. That people relate to, and I think it's because there's like just certain topical issues or topical things that he says within, where it's like you might not understand what is surrounding that, Yeah. But like a mosquito, my libido, like. Yeah. with the lights out, this is dangerous. Like I hear something like that. It's like, that's relatable content to somebody that's like an anarchic or chaotic person, or somebody who's dealing with a lot of, mania or whatever. Like
Right.
it's relatable. But then if you listen to something like, that the Pumpkins do, you can't understand anything that he's saying until he gets to like, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. It's like, okay, I get that.
Yeah,
and that's why that's like one of their singles that like people. But anyway, I digress. It's just it's good music. But like I'm trying, I write these like sad, gloomy acoustic songs that are very like tongue in cheek, very straightforward. It's like, I'm sad. This is why I'm sad, and they're more storytelling. But when I do the progressive rock music, then it's like it's very. It's like, yes, where it's like, you don't know, what am I talking about?
Right.
It's a Mike Patton approach too, like from Faith No More, where it's just like, this is the melody that sounds good. And then I just try to put words in spots that kind of sound good.
Yeah.
And then work around that. And then hopefully at the end of it, I walk away with something that means something to me.
Yeah.
But music is supposed to be subjective. I'm more curious as to what people's takeaway is.
Yeah, I kind of like that though, like, because a lot of the rock music that I tend to write, the lyrics tend to be more vague as well. Because like my Americana folk stuff is like, when I write in like Americana music, my goal is like, how clear can I be in this song while like crafting a very well, like the lyrics are so important because it's like how specific can I be while still maintaining a level of artistry to these lyrics. And then like you said, like it's more about the emotional context of the lyrics when it comes to heavier music, because like it can be subjective, like what do these lyrics mean to you. It's more of an art space than it is a specific idea. So I can totally relate to that.
I'm definitely very much into like double meanings, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just think it's fun, and I like using words that are above my pay grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot. I joke around about I write songs and song titles to make me sound smarter than what I really am. But it's mostly just me just trying to be smarter. Just trying to be better. Or whatever.
Adding to that process though too. Yeah, man. So.
I catch a lot of flack from a lot of my friends. I have a tendency to, when I'm speaking or if I get excited, I tend to try to use words that I think I know the meanings and the definitions to, and I might use them like in the wrong spots or whatever. But that's just me, just trying things. I'm a more arrows shooting kind of guy.
Hey, there's a book. I think I gave it away. Book called Ultra Learning by Scott Young, and he talks about how people learn new languages and like polyglots, people that can speak multiple languages, and a lot of those guys, like that's what most of those guys do. They just go to a country and they're like, I don't give a shit if I get the words wrong, I'm just gonna figure it out. Like, so no, like I think that's cool. Like learning your verbiage in context, man, in real time.
Life is about taking chances, man, and if there's one thing I do, it's definitely taking chances in all aspects and all facets,
Heck yeah, man.
I was really obsessed with Latin, like when I was younger.
Oh, yeah?
And because I used to do spelling bees and stuff like that. And, like learning Latin, I can't speak it very well. Obviously, it's a dead language. But like writing it and trying to learn the makeup of it, it helped. Like where I can see, if I could see a word or something or somebody's name that's like from a different culture or a different background or something, I might be able to say it properly just by reading it. And they're just like, oh, wow. They're like, do you know this? Like, can you speak Lebanese or whatever? I was like, no, like I just luck of the draw.
Got them good foundations, man.
Yeah. I think it helped out, in some aspects.
Yeah. It's really cool, man. So I kind of want to bring it on home. We've got, this is like a signature question on this podcast. You can answer it however you want to. It could be music. It could be life. It could be anything, or you don't have to answer it all. But do you have a favorite failure?
Oh, man. Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
I gotcha.
Yes. I'll say this. My turning point in my life was after that tornado. And everything changed.
Yeah.
Like the person that I used to be versus who I am today sitting in front of you. It's been a long and arduous process, like full of just bumps in the roads, hang-ups, trials and tribulations, all kinds of bad stuff, you know. So I've had a pretty shitty life, but I try to take the good and project it as much as possible. Results may vary, but there was a gentleman that I met, Mike. He was a blues guy. He had a blues show out in Oregon, and this guy cracks me up. He's such a wonderful person. I met him when I started doing open mics again, and he come up and talked to me. And I mean, this guy, he had like these Tommy Bahama shirts on, and he dressed like he was a parrot head. Yeah, is the best way I could describe it. That's what my first initial reaction towards him. I was like, this guy's a parrot head, like probably a Jimmy Buffett fan or something.
Right.
And he was a Buddhist, and he told me something that I'll never forget. He said, when the student is ready, the lesson will present itself. And that was just like,
wow,
blew my fucking mind. And I've lived that. I tell people that all the time. That was, you know, having a kid obviously changes you and changes your outlook and your perspective on life.
Totally.
Because you are no longer living for yourself. You have somebody else that relies on you. And I try to keep that in check every day. Right. Even now with me going out on tour, I struggle with, you know, am I being a good father? Am I being shitty because I'm leaving? You know, but it's like at the end of the day, I do still believe that this is, when I'm concerned with it, it's because people expect that there's only one way to live, and that's what you should do. And folks like us, that's not possible. Right. You know, that white picket fence and me retiring at a factory and stuff like that, I have to, this is me saying now, like, this is my stance where it's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah. Because that's not in the cards for me. Yeah. It's not built that way. Yeah. No, I got you, man. I'm not. I never have been. And that's been the thing where I've battled that duality all my life, where it's like I, you know, try to run the straight and narrow and try to deny these things that are like just inside of you. It's like it's not, there's, it sounds like such a weird thing, but it's like, there's days where it's like, I don't want to do music, but I just can't not do music. Yeah. You know, cause like tapping or just like, there's a song in my head always. And I said that I would get it out. If I ever got it all out, then like maybe I could be able to think, but then it's like pulling a gray hair. It's like, you know, two more pop up. Yeah, totally, man. And so, I mean, you know, but what Mike told me and taking that, and again, you know, you get out what you put in, like, that's it. I mean, you know, my fail, I don't think I've reached my greatest failure yet. And I hope that I never do. I hope that I keep learning. Yeah, that's great, man. Because, you know, that's what life's about. Totally, man. And you're a perpetual student, man. And from our conversation, dude, this has been wonderful. I very much enjoyed this, and I've been honored that you asked me to do this. So thank you. There were plenty of moments where I forgot we were recording. I just thought I was sitting here like talking with you on the back porch, man. It was so great, dude. So, that's how it should be, man. Yeah. Where can people find you? Like in general, or on the internet, man? No, I mean, yes. He lives in Memphis. Here's his address. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll give you my address and my social. You can find me on Facebook. Glorious Abhor is noisy. It's facebook.com/Glorious Abhor is noisy, all one word, and it's ABHOR. We're on Instagram. It's Glorious_Abhor, ABHOR. A lot of people say Glorious Arbor. Arbor? Yeah. That's a glorious tree right there. I mean, it's a glorious tree. I'm going to make shirts up that say Glorious Arbor. It's got to get done. But yeah, our Instagram. I think we have a Twitter. Who cares? And then Facebook. And then, you know, my Venmo is at Josh, JOSH, hyphen Stevens, STEVENS, hyphen 81. There we go. There you go. So, you know, give me your monies and then let me come to your town and we'll hug and have a good time. There we go. Where can we expect, you know, we're talking about the stuff from you going on tour and stuff. Where can we expect to find that? Is it going to be on the GA page or your personal page? Or? I'm probably going to promote it on the GA page a little bit. I try to keep that specific, but I think that's kind of like this weird constituents of where people think that they should only promote their own stuff on there, but I think, you know, that kind of is hypocritical towards the community that we're talking about here. You know what I mean? I won't promote the tour stuff that I'm doing with El Escapado on like the Glorious Instagram or something like, but maybe I'll post it on the GA page because I think it would be important for people to know. Totally. But I do have a personal page. It's, you know, you can find me at Josh Stevens or it's Dr. Dr. UNKAZZHELL. It's Dr. Uncas Hell. Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's my goddamn Facebook page. But yeah, but that's where I'll be posting a lot of this on. And then I do have a YouTube channel that I'll probably be posting this on. I'm sorry that I don't know what the YouTube channel is. I have a Glorious Abhor one, and then I have a Fragile Winter one. So
if you'll send me a link, I'll include it in the show notes. So all of this stuff will be in the show notes too, so you can just find them.
Awesome.
So
and
fantastic.
then just go. If you really want to know what we're doing, go look up El Escapado. We'll be out for 67 days. I mean, we're going to Alaska.
Oh, that's cool.
We're starting in Vegas, and it's going up through Utah and like up to California.
So is it all West Coast?
It's going to be, we're going up West Coast, then we're going to Alaska, and then we leave out of Alaska. We come back down to Washington, and then we go from Washington to across, where do we go to the East Coast as well. So we'll be up in Jersey, we'll be in New York, we'll be in Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. I mean, yeah, tons of places.
Wow.
I think we're doing New Mexico.
So you're doing a perimeter tour of the U.S.
Pretty much.
That's cool.
I mean, 67 dates, man, and that's going to cover a lot of ground.
Cool. That's bonkers, man.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's, I've got a lot of friends all over the U.S. and I haven't seen a lot of them in a very long time because it's hard to do,
right?
Especially with the pandemic. So I've definitely been reaching out to folks like, hey, I'm going to come through. Like, I would love to see you. And it's just going to be awesome.
Cool, man. Well, if you see them out on the road, go say hi to Josh. And, man, this has been great again. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been another episode of The Modern Working Musician, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been another episode of The Modern Working Musician. If you are interested in learning more about the podcast, you can visit keeganpaluso.com/modernworkingmusician. Likewise, if you're interested in advertising with The Modern Working Musician, you can find me at keeganpaluso.com or keeganpalusomusic@gmail.com. You can find us on all platforms at Modern Working Musician. Thank you guys so much for listening, and have a great day.